I've seen the Graven-Mass talisman get a lot of hate for what I consider to be no reason. I understand why people find it useless, but at the same time, it confuses me. So from I've heard, people hate this talisman solely because it increases sorceries by 8%, and not something higher like the Scorpion charms, which increase magic damage by 12%. But, unlike the Scorpion charm, there's no real drawback to the Graven-Mass talisman. The Scorpion charm talismans increase their respective charms' damage by 12%, which is fantastic. But they also increase damage taken by 10%, which isn't too bad of a drawback, but it has one nonetheless. And in PvP, it's actually a 15% drawback and only an 8% increase. Meanwhile, the Graven-Mass talisman will not lose anything when going into PvP. It will remain 8%. And obviously, since the Graven-Mass talisman only works on sorceries, it won't increase the damage of your weapons. So if you're using a weapon that scales with intellect or a magic ash of war, it won't increase either of those. However, the magic Scorpion charm talisman will, which in my opinion, and most players' opinion it seems, makes it better than the Graven-Mass talisman, which is probably why it's an absolute pain in the ass to even get. But that doesn't mean the Graven-Mass talisman is bad or worthless, since it does stack with other talismans. For example, sorceries will be 20% stronger if you equip both the magic Scorpion talisman and the Graven-Mass talisman. And you can increase it by another 4% by also equipping the Graven School talisman. Now obviously most players don't want to put on only damage increasing talismans, but you can make do with only 2 or 3 damage increasing talismans. Something like the magic Scorpion charm, the Graven-Mass talisman, then you can throw a Godfrey icon talisman. But what do I care? I'm not your dad. I can't tell you what to do. But my point is, the Graven-Mass talisman has absolute no negative drawbacks, unlike most other damage increasing talismans, whether those talismans curse you with taking more damage, or even meeting a certain requirement like holding a stance, or charging the spell, which leaves you vulnerable for another second or two. There's another talisman I've seen people complain about, though not to the extent they've complained about the Graven-Mass talisman. The Flock's Canvas talisman. This talisman gets hate for the exact same reason. It increases incantations by 8% and not something higher. It's the exact same thing as the Graven-Mass talisman, except it's for faith and not intelligence. I'm not going to repeat everything I've said, since it'll just be the same thing but for the faith talismans. And that'll be annoying to listen to, I'm sure. Instead, I'll mention the main reason I've heard these talismans get so much hate. I've seen and heard hundreds of people bitch and moan about these two talismans, and they always bring up the same thing each time. And it's just sad. The physical builds like strength or dexterity get to have talismans, like the rotten-winged sword insignia, which increases damage on successive attacks up to 13%, or the two-handed sword talisman, which increases damage of two-handed weapons by 15%. Both of these talismans have no drawback, but they increase the damage dealt by more than even the Scorpion charms. And I think the reasoning for this is very simple. People that use melee builds actually have to learn boss moves and get up into the rectum of the enemy. Meanwhile, magic builds simply stood at the back and casted Azur's Comet, or Meteorite of Astel. That's not to say a sorcery or incantation user doesn't have to learn boss moves, but it's definitely a lot easier for them, since they just need a tanky spirit summon and some distance to fuck up a boss. And there's no shame in that. I personally use a dexterity faith build, but holy fuck, I'm just sick of hearing these people that spam magic at the back of the boss arena acting like victims because their charms aren't making them super overpowered. Anyway, I got a little lost in the sauce at the end, but the point is, neither the Graven-Mass talisman nor the Flock's Canvas talisman are bad. In fact, they're pretty decent talismans, and you won't really lose anything by deciding to use one of them over something that's actually pretty useless, like the Radagon Icon Talisman. which is only really useful if you have absolutely no dexterity. But that's about it. I don't want to sit here and ramble even further when my point was made a while back. So if you watched to this point, then thanks for sticking around. And if you found this helpful, or maybe even enjoyable, then please consider giving this video a like and subscribing. It would really help out the channel and mean a lot to me. Until next time.